Good morning, everybody. We are nearing the end. We are just about at the end here, and we're going to take a video to take a look at some free agent edge rushers. That's right, edge rushers, generally considered to be the most important position in the NFL right now after quarterback. So, yeah, we need to pay attention here. However, and this is something that I argued like a month ago when I was laying out positional needs, I think the Seahawks edge rusher position is in pretty good shape right now. I think that when you take a look at what we have on the roster and what the expectations are, yeah, the results last year weren't necessarily great, although they weren't bad either. But you look at a guy like Boye Mafe, and I think it's reasonable to say he should be getting a lot better over the next couple of years. You look at a guy like Alton Robinson, who gave you nothing in 2022 because he never got healthy. If you're believing that he's going to come back and maybe play at least as good as he was his rookie year, that's a big boost. And then you even got a guy like Tyreek Smith, who I'm not a big fan of, but just because I'm not a big fan of him doesn't mean he's never going to do anything good. So I'm not super stressed out about the edge position. However, I think edge is a position where you don't necessarily need to have a big need to go after edge players. Pass rushers are really important. And, I mean, I'm looking at the Eagles, what the Eagles did this year. They traded for Robert Quinn and then basically never used him. They just traded for him to have him just in case. Robert Quinn basically didn't play for them. I think after the trade, he played like less than 100 snaps. So they just traded for him just to make sure they would have him just in case. And then just in case basically didn't happen. But you look at what that Eagles team did, and it should be a little bit of a learning lesson. And like, okay, this is the gravity with which you need to treat that position, because the Eagles are the team that ran a train on the conference and almost won the Super Bowl. So when they're doing something, I'm definitely going to look at that and say, okay, what can we learn from what this team just did? So even though I think we're doing okay at the edge right now, and even though I think edge is a position we can probably address in this draft, I want to look at some of these free agents. Now, I'm not going to advocate we go after any of the big names. I'm not going to advocate we go after any of the guys who are going to be super expensive. That's not reasonable. We have an expensive edge right now in Nwosu, and we have guys that we like in Taylor and Mafe. The question is, how can we round out the depth? And it's very possible that we end up drafting a guy and signing a guy just to stack depth. And maybe we end up pushing some guys out who we're kind of not so interested in. Like maybe Alton Robinson's just kind of a casualty at this point, where we're just like, okay, we've seen what Alton Robinson can do. It's not good enough. Let's move on. So with that in mind, I want to go over some options in free agency this offseason that might help round out the depth at the position. So at the moment, we are still running a 3-4 defense, which means our edge players are going to be playing outside linebacker. I tried to find guys who have at least done that before, and I've tried to find guys who I think can at least do that competently, because again, it's different than playing 4-3 end. So with that in mind, let's start with my old flame and the Hawks Nest old flame. You know, we like this guy, Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is kind of in an interesting position right now. You look at him the last couple years, he's got one season where he was really an effective pass rusher, had 9 sacks. He always plays the run really well. But that most recent year didn't impact the Browns' defense that much. But you know, at the very least with Clowney, you're getting a baseline of high-end play against the run. And Lord knows we could have used a little high-end play against the run last year. So you're getting that. He's only 30. He actually just turned 30 on Valentine's Day, as it would happen. So I think that you're taking a look at Clowney and you're going, okay, what's he really going to be worth, right? He just had a season where he played 12 out of 17 games for a pretty bad team. He had 2 sacks, which is a big drop-off from what he was giving you the year before. He gave you 9 sacks that year, which was very close to a career high. His PFF grade was still good. He was still an effective, all-around, efficient player. He just wasn't explosive. You go back to 2021, the year he actually had a lot of sacks, his grade overall actually went down, but This is a guy who, over his career, sometimes the box score stats don't like him, but the advanced metrics consistently do. You can go back to his season in Seattle in 2019. PFF grade of 87. They had him as one of the best edge players in the league that year. And obviously that was years ago, but at the same time, he only just turned 30. Hard for me to believe he doesn't have something good left. So at this rate, I mean, Clowney last year, I think he signed like a $10 million deal to stay with the Browns. The Browns are probably not going to bring him back after the year he just had. And you could probably get him for less than $5 million. So if you want to bring in Jadeveon Clowney for 1 year, $4 million, something like that, I would say, yeah, that's good value. He's going to at least give you competent play. He's going to at least be okay. So sign me up for that. Next name would be Samson Ebukam, currently of the 49ers, but formerly of the Rams. This is a guy who's bounced around the NFC West as is, so let's give him another home in the NFC West. Never been a huge number guy, but he's consistently giving you quality play. 5 sacks basically the last 4 years, he's had either 4.5 or 5 sacks, so he's consistently giving you decent play, but nothing over the top. Last 2 years for the 49ers, he's been playing in the 49ers defense, which is, of course, a 4-3. But before that, he was playing on the Rams, and the Rams run their 3-4. You go back to his 2020 season, his PFF grade doesn't look so good, but you go back to the previous year, 2019, it's solid. So Samson Ebukam, I think, can still probably hack it as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. And he's only going to be 28 when the season starts. And look, I don't think he's going to command big money. He's not a big numbers guy. The only reason why he might command big money would be because people look at him and go, oh, he played for the 49ers. They're the best defense in the league, so of course we got to throw a ton of money at him. But I would expect Ebukam to get something not radically different than what he was getting from the Niners, which was $6 million on his most recent contract. So I think you'd probably be looking at something in that range as well. In fact, I actually didn't even see this before, my bad. Spotrac even is going to take a shot here. Now, the Spotrac projections for market value are comically off in my experience, but they're taking a guess here, 3 years, 23.3. So if it's that much, I don't think I can do it. But if you can get him for something more like $5 or $6 million a year, that's probably worth it. He offers you some versatility if you're going to be running a hybrid defense as well. He can wear a few different hats. So Samson Ebukam would be a nice pickup. Another guy who I think needs to be talked about a little bit would be Melvin Ingram. This guy would be in the vein of a veteran stopgap. This guy is going to be 34 before the season starts. He's been around a long time. He's had some great years in this league, but the greatness is definitely a memory at this point. The days of him having double-digit sacks in a season, the days of him making the Pro Bowl, not here anymore. But this most recent season, he went to Miami, and in limited snaps, gave you 6 sacks. That's not bad, man. 6 sacks, that would lead the team for a couple of recent Seahawks defenses that I can think of. So Melvin Ingram, I don't know if the cliff is here or not, but if he wants to play another year, I don't think he's going to demand a big chunk of money. His PFF grade is still pretty good, pretty solid, indicative of somebody who can still rush the quarterback. Call him up for 1 year, $3 million, see what happens. Next name here would be Justin Houston, another older guy, another guy who the cliff is coming. He's going to be 34. Well, he is 34 already. He turned 34 about a month ago. And he's been around a long time. The days of him making the Pro Bowl and having double-digit... Well, actually, I got to take that back. He had 9.5 last year in 14 games for Baltimore. So as much as he is old, as much as he is past his prime, you have to look at this and go, hey, Justin Houston can still... He's still got something left in the tank here. It's a long way away from 22 sacks way back in 2014, the best year of his career. But this guy has aged pretty well. And at various points in his career, he's been an outside linebacker in a 3-4. And for these older guys, I think the important thing to remember, sometimes being a guy who stands up and doesn't just pound into the line on 99% of snaps is good for them. So he might want to play in a 3-4 at this point in his career. So given that opportunity, I think he would probably jump on that. And again, I mean, I don't know what the price tag is going to be for a guy who's this old and has this much miles on him, but he did just have a good season, so it wouldn't shock me if Houston was out of our price range. But if he ends up taking one of those small deals, just basically saying, I just want to keep playing football, then yeah. I mean, Spotrac estimates 2 years, 10.7. I'd like to come down a little bit from that, maybe like to $4 million a year, $4.5 million a year. Because, again, you don't want to be holding a big bag in case he is finally going to fall off the cliff this year. But if he would be willing to play for something like that, yeah, I would definitely be intrigued by that. So those two guys, Melvin Ingram and Justin Houston, the question is, do they have anything left to give you? And if the answer is yes, then you can definitely bring them in as part of your depth. And I got one more name here. It's Lorenzo Carter, bounced around from the Giants to the Falcons. Hasn't made a big impact in this league yet, but he offers a handful of sacks a season. He's giving you competent quality play, and he's wore different hats in his time in the NFL. He's played inside linebacker. He's played outside linebacker. I believe he's played in both 3-4 and 4-3 defenses, and he's come out of that and been a fairly decent player. His PFF grades most years are pretty good. This most recent year it was just okay. But you go back to the previous year, it was a little bit better. 2020, which I believe was the last year he was playing 3-4 outside linebacker, the grade was pretty good. So 2019, the grade was actually legitimately good. And I believe that year he was playing outside in a 3-4. So Lorenzo Carter, he's probably only going to cost a few $1,000,000, maybe like $2 million, and that would be worth it. So, yeah, there's definitely something here. There are some other guys that I'm not going to mention that would be at least interesting, but these are the guys who would kind of get me excited. Not because any of them are going to be amazing players, but if we were to target guys like this, and then on top of it, we draft edge players in the draft. I don't know exactly who, but if we used our second first-round pick on an edge, or if we used our second-round picks on an edge, or something like that, if we did things like that in tandem with what we already have, with Taylor, with Robinson, with Nwosu, with Mafe, that would make me feel like we're kind of doing what the Eagles were doing, building the pass rush to such an absurd degree that nobody can mess with us. So I think that's going to go ahead and conclude this video. I just wanted to quickly go over some of the edge rushers that intrigue me. If there's anybody you think I missed, if there's anybody you would throw in here, go ahead and let me know in the comments. If you really don't like any of these guys, you can also shout that out as well. But, yeah, there's definitely something to be said about using a veteran, a proven veteran, to round out your depth at the position. Because as much as I think our edge room is good, you can never really justify completely stocking up on these edge guys. All right, I'll see you guys later. Another video coming later today. Go Hawks, and we're right near the end, people.